Hello everybody, it is Hiro the Japanese Train here, aka Matt, and I'm here with Master of the Lemons, aka Lemmy.
And today, we're going to be talking about Gordon's machine.
Hey, look out! There's snow about!
I'm very fascinated, perhaps more fascinated than I should be, in Gordon's machine. The one that he comes by with at the end of Snow. That's one of the weirdest pieces of rolling stock in the entire show, and I feel like it deserves some analysis.
It looks like a giant HVAC system. On wheels.
I don't...
Blowing snow.
I don't understand. The narrator is just like, and then Gordon puffed by with his machine. They never gave us any context for this. It's like they talk about it like it's something we've seen for the last 4 seasons, and we're like familiar with it, and we're like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, his machine, you know?
Yeah, we've seen it before. We know what it...
I can't even verify what kind of snow railway equipment this is. I literally have written down, is this a jet blower, a regular snowplow, or is it a snow blower? Because, and this is sort of the technical aspect, there's a picture on the wiki that I really like because it actually kind of shows the front of the machine. But here's the thing, the contrast is up so high and it's such a kind of a bad photo that I can't really even tell if this is like a rotary snowplow, kind of like what Dustin is, or if it's like a sloped snowplow, or even if it's like, so like there's this thing called a jet blower, which is kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like the jet engine, but it's like got this giant, kind of like the snow machine, it has this giant block in the back, and then it has this like literally airplane jet engine that blows snow.
It's weird that we never see this thing in its entirety.
We have all of one shot
that
shows any side of it. And even then, half of it is blocked by snow. We can't even see the front of it. Probably the most important part of it, we can't see the front of it because it's blocked by snow.
I'm just taken aback at how little context we're given for what this even is. Like, they mention it offhandedly, like they would mention Thomas's snowplow. Like, it's not supposed to just shock us. It's like...
I feel like Gordon was starting to feel, like, inferior to all the other engines because he had his snowplow maybe looked small on him. So he just went out and got this giant snow machine to compensate for his feelings of inferiority.
I feel like the way I kind of look at the snow machine is I feel like it came along pretty early on. Like, I feel like it might even predate Donald and Douglas. Like,
it looks really old.
Yeah, it does.
Machine.
They usually send Donald and Douglas out. I feel like there used to be a time when Gordon had to do that work because he was the biggest and the strongest, and no one else could handle it. So he had this huge, just gigantic, old, over-engineered machine that they built for him so that he could kind of plow down the main line and get rid of all the snow. Because it's like, sure, we see Thomas clearing his branch and stuff, but like, I don't think... I mean, Donald and Douglas need to work together to clear snow, and I can't think of any other engines that would do that. I mean, James and Edward, for instance, could maybe go back to back, but they don't even know the tactics. Like, they wouldn't even think to do that. That was like a thing that Donald and Douglas brought over with them that they knew how to do, and they told the Fat Controller, like, hey, you know, we know how to, if we go back to back with a works coach in between us, then we can clear snow way more effectively. That's something that Donald and Douglas brought to the railway. So before them, I'm sure that the Northwestern's policy probably would have been, okay, get the biggest, strongest engine we've got, and just build them a giant, ridiculous machine, and just have them charge down the main line.
I mean, like, we've seen, you know, you've seen, like, those snowplows that are just a carriage.
Yeah.
Like, it's like just a giant... It's literally just a giant snowplow that's its own piece of rolling stock. The only thing keeping me from saying that that's exactly what this is the fact that it's a little bit longer.
Well, and the thing is...
and we can't see the front.
This definitely has to be, like... I'm going to have to... I think we're overlooking something really important about this plow, which is that it blows a
giant
bunch
exhaust.
it blows a bunch of snow all over the place. That tells me that there has to be some mechanical motion happening at the front that's causing that to happen. I think that what it is the model itself did not have like a big blade on the front, just because and that's probably why they kept it out of view. Like, this is probably something they made really quickly for the end of the episode.
Yeah.
However, I think the intention is it's supposed to have a blade at the front because of the way that they kind of did the effects and the way
I think so, yeah. So, like, watch it over, and it almost is like wheeshing steam. It's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that it's got this little chute on top of it, where it's like...
Yeah,
it's like,
but the chute isn't really doing anything.
I think it's supposed to, though. I feel like it's like the point of it is it goes through, it has some blade we can't see that's chopping up all the snow, taking all that snow in and shooting it out the top, which seems like a terrible idea.
You know those, like, gas... snow, well, I guess you wouldn't because you live in California, but those...
Wow, okay.
Those snow blowers that have, like, a chute on top of them, it's kind of shaped like a lawnmower. They have that, like, chute.
Gordon has a lawnmower.
I'm mowing the lawn. It looks like a giant, oversized, version of that.
Can I just say, that honestly gives me a thought, is like, I very much, if Gordon were a human, I would see him as the proud homeowner who, like, he's proud to mow his lawn every day.
Yeah, like Sarge from Cars.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I feel like Gordon, it's so fitting for him that every other engine, the snowplow is like an attachment. It's just something they put on them. But Gordon literally has, like, a machine that he separately pushes. He would want it to, he would take great pride in it looking good. He would want it to be treated well. We know that Gordon is really pompous and arrogant.
Of course.
On one level, he would hate clearing snow, I think, because it would be like kind of a disgraceful thing. But on the other hand, no one else could do it before Donald and Douglas arrived.
Here's the thing, is maybe you would take the episode Snow and set it before Donald and Douglas arrived, because I could see a situation where because Donald and Douglas start doing the snow duties, Gordon, like, feels icky about using this machine. He loses all semblance and pride in it because the lowly twins are using it.
Yeah, he sees them as these dirty kind of goods engines, and he doesn't want to be associated with their work anymore.
Suddenly
but honestly, I could see it as... Because the thing is, I feel like Gordon, if he was the snow-clearing engine before the twins... I feel like he would be better at using this machine, and he's not very good at it in the episode, because he just gets buried, and it's like, and I'm wondering if maybe it's like Donald and Douglas have had an accident or something, and so Gordon is forced out of retirement and has to start clearing the snow again, but he hasn't done it in like 15 years, and so he's like still rusty, and that's he's just getting back out there with his machine for this winter season, and that's why he fails so miserably in snow, is because he's out of practice.
Oh wow, so this whole time I've actually been kind of looking for a possible basis. Some of them that kind of look like Irving from Chuggington.
Oh no!
But replace the bristles with rotary snowplows, 2 of them, small ones in the same location.
Weird.
But it looks kind of similar to the snow machine.
Interesting. That would make a lot of sense then, because what the picture I'm looking at right now, the one you mentioned from the front, it's like the whole bottom half of the machine is covered with snow. Maybe that's because it's got those 2 little rotary things at the front that are down below. And so we're not seeing the actual... Which would make sense, because that's where the snowplows go on the engines. It's like low down.
Yeah, they'd be...
So it's not like Dustin. It's more like 2 mini Dustin turbines side by side lower down. And that's why we can't see them. Okay. All right, that makes a lot of sense.
Some of them are in rolling stock form, but they look more like a van. I think that whatever Gordon's pushing is at least similar to this in its anatomy.
Okay. The way I see the snow machine, though, I would say I don't think we need to find a basis for it, because it looks very ragtag, like it was thrown together. I think they just built this at Croven's Gate, and maybe in there was a really desperate snow season in the 30s, and so they were they decided to just build this. and Gordon, just became the de facto snow engine until Donald and Douglas arrived. I see it as kind of thrown together, which is interesting because it calls into question how this machine would behave, because on one hand, it does have a pretty prestigious job and everybody relies on it to clear snow, but on the other hand,
it looks so wacky. It's just like chucking snow everywhere.
Yeah, so it's like, would this machine be as pompous as Gordon is? Or would it have this kind of humility because it's realized...
Whatever the relationship with Gordon is, I don't think that they would be in perfect accordance.
Here's what I think would happen. I think at first, Gordon would hate the idea of clearing snow. But then once he cleared it for the first time, and everybody cheered him when he gets home, and he gets back to his nice warm sheds.
It would feed his ego, and he would feel proud, and then he would be the first in line begging to do it the next year.
Yeah. It's funny. I keep making comparisons to a homeowner, but I feel like Gordon has a lot of those kind of vibes, where it's I think...
He does.
It's kind of like how in the Christmas season, it's if Gordon were a human, he would be the one to go up and put the Christmas lights up, and he would be really proud of it.
Yeah, he'd be shoveling the walkway.
Yeah, exactly. He would take care of his home, and, that would be his job.
He'd compete with the neighbors for more Christmas lights.
Yeah. It's honestly an interesting thought, though, is I wonder if Gordon would have ever admitted that he liked doing the snow job. Because I think clearing the snow for all those years, it wouldn't be respectable for him to admit that he liked it. So he would have said for years, oh, I hate doing this job. But then when it's taken away from him, he actually does really want it back, but he can't say that.
Imagine this, because he's the mainline engine, all these visiting engines, the LMS engines, whatever, going through, and they see Gordon just out there going 10 miles an hour, pushing this thing.
Yeah.
That must have been such a laugh for them. He has this job that he initially has to do. He ends up liking it, but the whole time he's never really in a situation where he can allow himself to show it.
Yeah, because if he shows it, then everyone's going to laugh at him and say, ha, you do menial labor. He's slowly going along the main line, right? And then as engines pass him, they kind of throw insults at him, or they make jokes. And Gordon is he's kind of trying to hide behind this machine, right? He wants to pretend like they don't see him.
And then the machine starts to understand it. By the way, I propose that we just name this thing the machine.
Honestly, yeah, that's what we've been calling it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being a workman, just oh, that's the machine.
Yeah, I love that it's not any more descriptive. It's just everybody on the island, nobody on the island is quite certain about it, so they're all just the machine. It's what is...
Yeah, if you took this thing to Croven's Gate and put it off its wheels and just in the corner, you'd think it was the HVAC system.
Yeah.
But I back to what we were saying, especially as Gordon is getting heckled by, engines domestic and abroad, really.
Yeah.
The machine starts to realize it and starts to kind of comfort Gordon by blowing snow in front of them so they can't be seen.
That's really great. Like a snow screen almost.
Yeah, a snow screen.
Or I kind of looked at the machine as being kind of more snarky and a little bit more kind of giving other engines a taste of their own medicine.
Just chuck a snowball at Henry's face.
Yeah, Henry's coming by making fun of Gordon, and then this machine just wheeshes him in the face with snow. And Gordon's like, all right, that was good. I could see something like that, where the two of them start getting along because the machine picks up on the fact that
You'll notice the machine, even in this episode, just starts pelting Thomas with snow.
Yeah, that's true. It seems like this machine has just as much disrespect for Thomas as Gordon does.
He learned it.
I think
the machine learned it.
Honestly, I think Gordon and this machine would be really chummy once they kind of got to know each other that first year.
Yeah.
Then they would be on great terms, and they would be like, all right, time to clear the snow again. You remember the tactics? And the machine's like, of course. And Gordon's like, all right, we're the only two who can do it. The machine's like, nobody better. And then the two of them just work together to clear the island.
And one of the core aspects of the machine's personality, and this was actually touched on in Dustin Comes in First, this is a really good point, is that it's only taken out once a year.
Yeah, that's true.
Really. One season.
That is sad, because it basically is probably just stationed in the works for a long time. which honestly calls into question some interesting things. So I would say that based on what we've said so far, the Machine's closest friend would be Gordon. I think the Machine would be the only character on the whole island to know really, truly that Gordon likes clearing snow.
Yeah.
Like, no one else would know that but the Machine. And so they kind of share a deep connection for that reason, where it's like Gordon feels understood in that, like, this kind of weird hobby that he has that nobody else gets, but this Machine respects. I feel like for that reason, their relationship is kind of profound. Its best time of the year is definitely charging down the main line with Gordon in the winter. However,
it's probably the only time it gets to really see the world.
Yeah. Most of the year, the Machine isn't doing that stuff. So it's probably stationed in the works. And think about the characters it would be surrounded with. It would be surrounded by characters like Victor, Kevin, the Works Diesel. I'm thinking it would spend a lot of time with the Sodor Railway repair. Because that Machine is another one that they don't bring out unless they really need it. And so a lot of the time it's just sitting dormant. So I feel like the two of them would have a lot in common because they're both machines that are specifically built for one purpose that only come out when they're needed for a very specific job. And so I could see them really relating on that. And I don't know how you see the Sodor Railway repair, but maybe just because of the glasses, I always saw him as kind of like a more sensitive character.
Honestly, the Sodor Railway repair's expression to me more, like on the wooden railway model, he's got this sort of nervous look.
Yeah.
He doesn't look fully contented, so yeah, I see that.
And it would be interesting. I think this would really emphasize the Machine's personality, because putting the Machine and the Sodor Railway repair next to each other, you would really see how much like Gordon the Machine really is. The Sodor Railway repair is not really very confrontational at all. Probably just doesn't want to, get in other people's business. He's literally just there to help the railway. That's his one goal. He deals in what all the engines drive on every day. It's not really the most glamorous thing, but it's also very, very important.
He kind of exists just for the common good.
Yeah. But it's like, he's kind of the type of engine that he's by the line side just sitting there doing very slow, menial work. Whereas there's something glamorous about what the snow machine does. Because the machine just kind of like, it blows all this snow everywhere. It just exudes raw power. Really, it connects to Gordon in a really meaningful way, because Gordon is like the most powerful engine on the island. He really respects displays of power. And this machine, there's no denying that it has a lot of power. It can blow through snow like it's nothing. Even when Donald and Douglas come along and they're the more effective method, this machine is more powerful than they are. Comparing those two characters, the Sodor Railway repair and the Machine, I feel like in a conversation, the Machine would kind of dominate it and have very strong beliefs and views. And he'd be like, it's absolutely disgraceful the way that these works are run. If I were back on the main line, well, I would maintain the railway far better than any of them would. And then, the Sodor Railway repair is just like, maybe you're right about that. I could see that. He's just kind of trying to make sure this doesn't turn into like an argument.
He'd probably be obsessed with the fact that Donald and Douglas, get every little snowflake off the rails. We don't need that. Just blow through it and look good while doing it.
He'd be a really brute force character, which again really relates to Gordon, because Gordon is brute force too. Like, imagine Gordon, Donald, and Douglas, like one year, the worst year for snow on the whole island. They have to bring out all three big guns: Donald, Douglas, and Gordon in the Machine. And so, they all together, they have to clear the snow on the island, and they have to figure out a plan together.
Yeah.
Donald and Douglas would try to come up with a reasonable plan, where they'd be like, all right, well, I think we'll start at Wellsworth, and then we'll make our way down Edwards Branch Line, and, we should probably go slowly in this part, or else we're gonna run into trouble. And then Gordon would...
It would result in Gordon derailing.
And Gordon would just be like, we don't need to do that.
He'd fly off a corner.
Yeah. It would just be like, Gordon would have a totally different philosophy. He'd be like,
we need to show that snow who's boss. We need to run down the line, full speed, as fast as they'll let us go.
And that shows in the episode, because Gordon wants to just blow through this tunnel, and then it just crumbles on him.
He has no tact at all. He's so used to relying on his strength and speed that he hasn't had to develop any techniques. Whereas Donald and Douglas, they know what they're doing. They're pros.
Right.
And so Gordon, they would roll their eyes so hard when Gordon is like just thundering through with his machine.
Gordon would live his entire life solving things by force if it were socially acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
The machine is like one of his few chances a year to actually realize it.
I know. Because it's literally the chainsaw of railway equipment. I mean, it's so extreme. And it's just perfect for him. Like, I mean, the two really are made for each other.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Donald and Douglas, they've just got old-fashioned snowplows. What do they have between them? They don't have some big, fancy machine.
They have a coach with workmen, with shovels.
It's just them and their technique. It's the equivalent of, like, having a firearm or some sort of weapon versus knowing karate. And actually knowing, like, how to, like, strike the right blows.
Gordon is the one bringing a gun to a knife fight.
Yeah, exactly. He's just so, he's so extreme. Because Gordon really values power. He really values strength. But he doesn't necessarily, he kind of blows off tact and skill. Because he doesn't usually need those things.
And that kind of says something about, like, the sort of haphazard way this machine was probably built. Hobbled together in Croven's Gate as this giant hulking machine. You see how much bigger than Gordon it is.
It's such a brute force machine. It's like a weapon for Gordon to use against the snow.
Hopefully not the engines.
I think it's like a story with Donald, Douglas, Gordon, and the machine would just be so perfect because it would be such a clash of ideologies.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of things that Gordon and this machine wouldn't agree on, but I don't think they ever come up. The context they're always talking to each other in is a snow context. And they both agree on how to deal with the snow on Sodor.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, if Gordon was never given the job that would bring him to meet this machine, he would probably hate it. Like, he would probably, he would look down on it so bad. He would absolutely despise it if, like,
I know.
If Edward was the one on the job or something.
Yeah, but because he's actually been forced to get to know this machine, he adores it.
Right.
And that's the thing. That's what always happens. Is that, like, Gordon, all of Gordon's arrogance and looking down on others is based on ignorance. Whenever he gets to know them, he actually learns to respect them. And that's what's happened with this machine. So now they're totally buddy-buddy.
And that makes me think about the machine's default relationships with other engines. Like, if another engine were forced to use this thing...
I feel like the only other engine who could even manage it would be, like, Henry. I feel like this is, like, a really heavy, difficult-to-use piece of machinery.
It would be, or, like, in the later years, it'd be one of the bigger engines, like Hank or Murdoch or Hiro.
Yeah. I almost wonder, once Donald and Douglas take over and really they barely ever use the machine anymore, I wonder if it would ever be in jeopardy. Like, it might be in a situation where...
Where it may be scrapped.
Yeah. Like, imagine...
I could see that, and then Gordon goes on a crusade.
Yeah. Usually the engines Ari and Bert go up against, they're like James, Thomas, Percy. Like, imagine if they heard that Gordon was charging down the main line en route to the smelters. They would be like, wait, what? They would, like, Gordon just screeches in there, slams on his brakes, like, his buffer's a few inches from Aries, and he's just like,
where the hell is my machine?
And Ari would just be like,
well,
I'm over here.
Yeah. I just think that Gordon and the machine would just be equally epic in the way they deal with situations.
Unnecessarily so.
Yeah. Like, the machine wouldn't even flinch when Bert is, like, slowly backing it into, like, a scrap siding. It would just be like,
I know Gordon's coming for me, and when he does, you'd better watch out.
It kind of reminds me of, like, kidnapping, like, a really pompous congressman.
Yeah. Where they're not scared. They're just wisecracking the whole time.
I'm too important.
Yeah. It's just like,
the best you can do is ransom me.
The machine would be really tone deaf in that sense because of what it is, but it thinks it's so much more than.
Yeah. Like, God, imagine the fact that you mentioned just like a ransom situation. I think about that, and it's just like, Imagine if Ari and Bert did ransom this machine, and then Gordon had a big meeting, a big indignation meeting, and everyone's there, like everyone. It's even Thomas, and he's not allowed at indignation meetings, according to Gordon. Yeah. So it's like, it's serious. And everyone's like, and Henry's like, Gordon, what's this about? It must be more serious than any indignation meeting we've ever had.
My machine.
And James is just like, what? Hold on, the last time we had one of these was when Oliver's life was in danger.
My machine is in danger, James.
And Thomas, if Thomas could do that thing where he, massages the brim of his nose and just sighs, he would. He'd be like,
just use your snowplow.
And Gordon's like,
my machine is everything to me.
It's like, but it would honestly be kind of sad because at first
it would be. Yeah.
They wouldn't see the value in the machine, and it would be really interesting because in a situation like this, if Gordon has been hiding his love for this machine for so long, then once it's actually sent to the smelters, Gordon would actually have to admit this about himself to everybody. But I feel like he would do it in grand style, where he would actually hold a big indignation meeting.
We need at least 20 engines to storm the ironworks.
And they're all like, no, hold on, we can't do that.
Last time we did that, the steamworks was stolen.
Stolen! I mean, it was.
I wonder if Gordon would ever campaign to have this thing, painted.
That's an interesting thought. It's
in, Northwestern colors with red lining.
Maybe. I honestly think if Gordon had the machine painted, he would have it painted like a coach. It would be, all in orange. It would have its name in white. Yeah. It's
it would have, windows painted on the side.
No, God, no. Not that. But, I feel like Gordon would kind of view it that way, with that level of esteem.
He would decorate it like it was the royal coach. Sundry and crest on the sides.
Yeah, really. So I really love what we've come up with.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The connection that Gordon has to this machine, I think, is really fitting.
It's his guilty pleasure.
It's so fitting that Gordon would, be the original snow engine on the island, and they would build this machine specifically for him, so that he could clear snow before Donald and Douglas arrived. And they would build this connection, but Gordon would have to hide it because it's not necessarily the most...
Yeah.
It's kind of uncouth to like snow clearing. So he would have to hide that, but he would build this really strong bond with this machine. And then once Donald and Douglas come along, he doesn't get to see it nearly as often, but he really kind of wishes he could. But Gordon keeps that secret for years because he knows that he'll get laughed at if he mentions that he likes snow clearing. However, then when the machine's life is finally in jeopardy and it's going to be scrapped, that's when Gordon is finally forced to admit this to everybody. And maybe from then on, it's there's a week every winter where Gordon still gets to clear snow. Or he has some part in it from now on because everyone realizes this is important to him. And so they actually let him. And there's a moral there where it's be honest about yourself. Let others know what is valuable to you, what matters to you, because you might lose it if you don't.
Yeah, and there's even that message of letting Gordon be his true self, because if he has to suppress this liking for the machine, then that's kind of I'm sure people in the fandom can relate to that.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's an interest that Gordon has that he's actually really passionate about, that he has to suppress because he's worried about what others will think of him. It's another one of those tragic situations where Gordon's own kind of prejudices, even against himself, are preventing him from living his best life. And so it would be nice to see him actually kind of overcome this kind of hatred of this interest that he has and his guilt about it, when really there's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's actually a service to the railway.
And honestly, it makes every episode, post season 5 where Gordon has dealt with snow, it adds a depth to it. Gordon takes charge when he just plows into that huge snowdrift in front of everyone at the station. I'm sure as soon as he crashes, he's like, my machine should have fixed this.
Yeah, he misses the thing, but he can't admit it to anybody.
And you know what? That sadness would then turn to anger and feeling threatened when Dustin arrives.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, when Dustin shows up,
Gordon would hate Dustin.
Yeah, and Dustin wouldn't understand why, and no one would understand why, depending on when this happens.
Yeah.
Because if this is before the machine goes back in operation after the whole Ironworks incident, then that means that, Gordon essentially sees this thing as, it's already dangerous that Donald and Douglas are around doing his machine's work. Now that Dustin is here, his machine is, like, clearly inferior.
And the fact that Dustin is self-powered, too, like, he's just so infinitely better than the machine.
That actually raises an interesting question, is how is is Gordon's machine powered? Is that also steam-powered?
There's no steam coming out of it. There's no exhaust other than snow. It almost looks like it's just powered by movement.
Oh my god. That would actually be really cool if the reason why nobody else can use this machine is because it's literally just Gordon's raw strength moving it forward.
I don't know if that's sound in terms of engineering, but that seems like that's just my Thomas fandom expertise forming a hypothesis.
Yeah, if that were true, that would actually be pretty cool. I think it adds a lot to Gordon. I like how Gordon is the biggest engine on the railway for a long time. And because of that, I think that's why he gets some of the more unique machinery. Like, he's such a big machine that he gets his own machines. Like, he's got his, his snow clearing machine. He's got his, like, big ridiculous pulley that you mount on the front of his buffer beam that he uses in Down the Mine. He's got stuff like that like is legitimately just built for him because, like, he's such a big engine that they can actually harness that. Whereas other engines can't really use a separate machine to harness their abilities because they're just not big enough. So I think it really adds something to Gordon's character and to add something to Gordon's history that for like a period of 20 to 30 years, he was clearing snow on the main line. That was his job. So I think that fits him really well. I think that just the personality that we've granted this machine really fits Gordon and would make for some really interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more scenarios, like how Donald and Douglas would interact with Gordon and his machine. How Gordon's machine would interact with Airy or Bert or with the Sodor Railway Repair or the Works Diesel. I mean, there's just so many great combinations, and it's such an unusual character that I feel like there's so many things you could do with it that you could not do with anybody else. And I think there's a lot of other ideas you could have with it too. And I'd love to hear what the audience thinks of the snow machine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
what do you guys think it would act like? What do you guys think, when was it built? Where is it stored? All those questions. So I'd love to hear about that from you guys.
Yeah, what story ideas? I'm curious to see what people come up with.
Yeah, I kind of want to write some of these.
I know, there's so much potential for, like, a great Christmas special in here.
I know, really. It's like, Gordon learning the true meaning of his machine. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I've been Master of the Lemons, a.k.a. Lemmy.
I'm HiroTheJapaneseTrain, a.k.a. Matt.
And happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening.
See ya.